Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. This is on the art of persuasion and objection handling. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to trickle in here. We've got some great guests today. We've got somebody from Rescueair. We've got someone from Hatch. Can you guys all see, Tim and Mike, can you confirm that you can see the screen and the video?
Yep. Good to go.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to let people come in. As you're coming in, I would love to know where you are coming from. I'll start. I'm here in Boston. Well, I'm just south of Boston, so about 20 minutes south. Andrew is from Richmond. Great. DR, is it DR? I just read that as Dr. Watts. That's definitely not Dr. Watts. Is that DR Watts? How do you? We've got New York. We've got North Carolina. Great. Northern Indiana, Austin, Texas. We got people coming from all over. Somebody's I think it might have been. Cool. We have people coming from all over. And again, this is our webinar on objection handling and the art of persuasion. Oh, and James says it is Dr. Watts, Belton, Texas. Never heard of that before. Interesting. I'm going to also ask one more question for those who are on here. You can keep telling me where you're from, but I would also like to know when it comes to objection handling, what is one word that you would use to describe how you feel about objection handling? Is it easy? Do you like it? Is it fun? Is it the bane of your existence? How does objection handling make you feel? I just want to get a sentiment of how people are feeling coming into this webinar, what they're looking to get out of it. So put in the chat. Let me know how you feel about it. I myself am not a salesperson, so I don't have a word to describe, but we've got Chad. He does not like it. Always welcome an objection, part of the job. Wilbur says it's challenging. Okay, we got a mixed bag here, which is good. Challenging. Jackie thinks it's challenging as well. Yeah, it's definitely an art, any sort of interpersonal interaction. That's why we were employed. Love the challenge. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I'm sure, with practice, you get better and better at it. And maybe there's some things in this webinar that you already know, and maybe there are some things that you don't know. So hopefully we'll be able to help you out. So I'm going to get started. My name is Kristen. I am head of marketing here at Hatch. This is the Objection Handling and Art of Persuasion webinar. I'm going to just take a minute and allow our speakers to introduce themselves. Before I do that, though, I do want to just quickly let you guys know about Hatch. I know some of you that are here are Hatch customers and some of you aren't. So for those who are not aware, we are an AI platform for CSRs and contact centers. So we equip you to build, monitor, and deploy AI CSR agents. And the main results by automating your customer communication, we essentially allow you to automate and scale personalized prompt communication. And so the result there is better customer experience, which of course leads to higher conversion, more sales, and also higher retention. And then our AI CSRs, they eliminate a lot of that repetitive work that humans have to do. So it kind of takes that out of the equation and allows your humans to focus on some of the higher level activity. And then the overall result is to be able to scale without the overhead. So that's just a little bit about Hatch. For our next speaker, I'm going to let him introduce himself. This is Tim. Take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Kristen. Nice to meet you all. Hey, I'm Tim. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Hatch. So happy to talk about objection handling. It's definitely something that we talk about all the time here on the sales team at Hatch.
Great. And then Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Rescueair?
Sure, thanks, Kristen. My name's Michael Hirsch. My nephew and I, Josh Campbell, we co-founded Rescueair about 11 years ago, and we've grown it to over $20 million. We're very sales oriented. we try not to be salesy. We like to say we're problem solvers. So, that's kind of where we come from. So
love it. Love it. So yeah, this webinar kind of has 4 parts. So we're going to talk, the first part is going to be about objection handling. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Rescue Air and how they are using Hatch and Service Titan together. We'll talk then about AI, automation, and then we'll open it up in the end for questions and answers. If we have some questions during the webinar that are particularly relevant that we want to answer right away, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll take note and we will answer them during the Q&A section. So that being said, I am going to just quickly turn off these slides so we can all see. I'm going to change this. Okay. Are you guys seeing? There we go. Great. And I do want to add in one more. Julie Puckett had a good word for how she feels about objection handling, and that is intriguing. Love that word. It makes me think of that emoji with like the hand on the chin thinking. Anyway, that's just my brain. Okay, so part 1, objection handling. So Michael, I talked to you a little bit ago, and you brought up this book, and I have not actually read the book, but I did look at the Spark Notes for it, and you were telling me about it, and it reminded me a lot about a book that I had read. So anyway, this book is called Never Split the Difference, and it's written by a hostage negotiator. And, we were talking about objection handling. So Michael, I would love it if you can tell the audience a little bit about this book and about the seminar. Just kind of fill the audience in on just on the book. Tell us about it.
Yeah. It's by Chris Voss. He was international hostage negotiator for the FBI. So the book goes into, it's a great book, James. He goes into, he tells a lot of stories about how he's used like tactical empathy and no-oriented questions and labeling and just building really true rapport with somebody, not common ground rapport, but more rapport of like listening and they know they're listened to and heard. So it's a totally different approach. They use a lot of like no oriented questions instead of old school sales. You hear them like, hey, you get 3 yeses, you're going to get the sale. They convinced themselves it's yes, 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 and he's totally a 180 spin on that. So it's really interesting on how he does it. I went to their seminar and it was really cool. They did one, they talked about labeling, mirroring, paraphrasing, all the different things that he talks about in his book. But it was they had an exercise. They had 3 people volunteer. So everybody pretty much volunteered. So they picked 3 people. They took them out of the room. They kind of give them a little idea of what they're going to do, and so they bring them back in. And one of the presenters, it wasn't Chris, it was one of the guys at Black Swan. He was a hostage negotiator as well. He does the 60-second exercise that he's got a hostage and he's going to shoot him. And, it's so wild. They're sitting there and they just get so tense because he's got an assertive tone and you're just watching them. And there's certain things you can't do, like give them money, transportation. I want to say within 35, 45 seconds, everybody offered him the car and told him and he was telling them how he wanted the car, and then he became very laid back and nice, and you could see their demeanor. They just got relaxed more. He was friendly and things like that. But so it was really cool to watch that and see how people react. And then so we're not negotiating for people, thank God, but we're still negotiating with people. So
yeah. And I was looking at some of these terms like tactical empathy. So for those of you who haven't read it, a few of the terms that Michael talked about here were tactical empathy. This one's kind of self-explanatory. You kind of reflect back to them what they're, you're like, it sounds like you're frustrated with this, or, it sounds like this, so that you can build that rapport. And then labeling is kind of just calling out the objection. So not trying to get away from it, but actually labeling it so that you can then put a name on it and kind of tackle it. And then I think the third thing you talked about the no-oriented questions. So love that. Tim, do you have any commentary on those tactics from your side of the sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the elements that you mentioned, I think it's a great book, and a lot of great sort of application into what we're doing over here. From our perspective, we really try and kind of be consultants and help, solve business challenges. So we're working with many of you on the phone, right? And if we're not working with you, we'd love to work with you. And so, there's many common objections that come up. Price would be one of them, or timing would be another. I'm sure those come up in your business too, Michael, right? And so, just trying to understand from a consultative perspective, why is that an issue? Try and have that empathy, asking questions to kind of derive more information to then use to work with your customers to try and get to a negotiated agreement is what we're doing all the time. And so I love the book, and I love a lot of the kind of tactics described in it. And yeah, I'd be interested maybe, if I know I'm not the moderator, Kristen, but just asking, Michael, quickly, how are you sort of deploying some of the things you learned in that seminar and by reading the book in your business today? Any kind of just sort of tactical on the ground ways that you've deployed it?
Yeah, I think, one big thing, sales guys love to talk. Especially in our industry, I find it's more about listening to people and understanding what they're saying, and paraphrasing it back to them. They had a really good example of, if you're telling somebody, you're paraphrasing back to what they said, as far as their objections or whatever it might be, and you're right. You didn't listen. You're telling them from your perspective. If you get that's right, they feel like you understood them, and it's just a lot better thing going on there. When you said about like the labeling, the thing you want to do is you want to get like the objection out there. You want to be collaborative with them in solving the problem. If somebody goes, "Oh, the price is too high." What do you mean the price is too high? That's a great price. You don't. Now all of a sudden you're combative with them. Sometimes, I've told our sales guys all the time. I go, if somebody says, "Hey, the price is too high," just be quiet and say, "It seems like the price is a little higher than you were expected," and let them process it instead of just going, "Oh, the price is too high. Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can get you a better price." They're just maybe making an observation. It might not even be a true objection. Okay, it's high. Don't try that. When you get on that when you try to defend it like that, it becomes combative.
Yep, for sure. And it's kind of sounds like it's combining those two tactics of like mirroring, where you kind of repeat some of the words that they said, and kind of pausing, because that kind of invites them to elaborate more. And then, like you said, just empathizing with them.
Yeah, if you have like a little dynamic silence, there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people are just processing what they're seeing or what they're hearing.
Yep. What are some of the so you talked about price, and I'm sure most of the objections can be pretty, I know, price, timing, things like that, but what are some of the most common objections you get, and how do you respond to them other than price?
Well, timing is sometimes one of them. The best way we overcome timing aspect is typically offering like a financing solution, like a 12 months no interest or 18 months no interest. It's never a good time to buy an air conditioner or sewer system or a water heater. No, it's not like you're not real excited about it.
Right.
It's out of sight, out of mind with people.
Mm-hmm.
But they're usually the ones that we hear the most. Like, "Oh man, I wish it would have happened 6 months from now. I have a bonus coming," or the price, the whole price thing, and you can be like, "It seems like you don't see the value in this," or whatever it might be. So, and let them explain. It might be, you start digging into it. It may be they can't afford it right now. The price is fair. They see the value in it, but they don't. They just don't have the way to price.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're, and Tim, I'd love for you to speak to this too, kind of this part of like surfacing them. Like you start the conversation. I know for Hatch specifically, like a lot of our sales follow-up campaigns, they're not designed to win the sale. They're just designed to bring up those objections. So Tim, if you can speak to that a little bit, and then Mike, if you want to go ahead and just explain, see if I'd be curious if you're using Hatch in the same way.
Yeah, I can give a quick overview of Rehash in terms of how Hatch customers are leveraging it. And so, for those of you that know Hatch, this will be familiar, but those of you who don't, just a quick overview. With Hatch, you're able to send sort of multi-channel campaigns across like SMS and email, for example, to customers. And you can have different triggering events for those campaigns. And so when I say triggering event, what I mean by that is a reason why you're sending the campaign. And so in the case of Rehash, let's say you had someone go into the home and tech was in there, did an estimate. So now you have an estimate that's kind of outstanding, right? For $5,000 or $10,000 or something for an install, perhaps. So what we have a lot of our customers do is they'll have a campaign in Hatch that runs that says immediately after kind of the next day, they'll send a text message. Hey, can you give some feedback on the technician that went into your house? Like, how did it go? So it's not even asking about, the price. It's not asking about, are you ready to transact or anything like that. It's simply saying, hey, do you have any feedback on how things went with the technician yesterday in the home? The goal there is to get a conversation going, right? So then hopefully the homeowner replies and like, oh yeah, it went great. I think we're ready to go. Can you give me a call? We'll talk about it. Or maybe it's, hey, it went well, but I think, I'm waiting for that bonus. So it's going to be six months from now when we're ready to go. Right. But then you can get into objection handling. So you can start to have that conversation. That's a big way that folks use Hatch to help kind of get into these conversations, understand if there are objections in the first place, and do it in a less salesy way. So yeah, I'd be curious, obviously anyone in the chat to chime in if they kind of leverage that kind of technique with Hatch today or on their own. And then, yeah, Michael, curious if this is something you're using Hatch for today.
Yeah, we use it very similarly. We reach out. It's almost like a happy call.
Yep.
Almost like, hey, how'd everything go? Just to try to re-engage. And that works very well. They'll come back and say something, or and you get some that are just like the stop. They don't want you to reply. Whatever it might have been. Usually we find those typically to be on maintenance calls, but we just want to get them re-engaged and have discussions with them about what interests them. Because we'll typically leave 3 to 4 estimates, and we try to hone in on which one made the most sense to them. And our technicians are really good about leaving notes. So they may say, hey, we're Christians, they were really interested in option 2. They wanted to talk about it tonight. So they kind of have an idea of the option that the homeowner might be steered towards.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're using it. There are we've got templates, and one of the common questions we'll get is, like, what's the best practice for my industry? Like, what's the best sales follow-up campaign? And honestly, like we have a template and it's general, but it works because, to Tim's point, it's not, you don't have to get into the specifics. You're just trying to start that conversation. And Michael, it sounds like for you guys too, you take, you've got the detailed notes, you've got the context, and I'm sure you also probably have some sort of dispositioning in your CRM, and that can probably help customize your campaigns too, depending on what estimate they've gotten, or, like you said, the reason why they may have not closed right away.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you get into the Hatch side of it, and a lot of times we'll find that it's really good for coaching our technicians on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing, and you all don't ever, when we onboarded, we didn't even think about that. Like the options they left may not make sense to the homeowner, so you can go to that technician, hey, I was over at Tim, we were talking to Tim, and you were at his house yesterday, and he's got some confusion here. What went on here? He's not sure why you quoted this to him, or what happened here. So it's a good way to coach technicians and plumbers and stuff on the back end of it with real life example that they remember. It
Right.
didn't happen 6 months ago or something like that because you're following up so frequently.
Right. Yeah, when I kind of started in this role, I wasn't familiar at all with HVAC sales or anything like that, or home service sales. And I didn't quite understand, when I thought of a sales follow-up campaign, I just assumed it was like, I saw something and it was like, how was your visit? And I was like, that they haven't had the appointment yet, but actually that consultation appointment is one of the most important. And like you said, it's basically like a happy call. And I know, Tim, if you want to talk a little bit about this, you may be a little bit more familiar with it, but for Hatch, when we are, we've got our AI bots, the AI CSRs, and for our campaign templates, that's one of the things that they can do is be programmed to ask a certain set of questions. And one of them is, did your technician explain all the options clearly? So it just sounds like it's a great way to just get that information. And then by the time the AI CSR passes it off to a human rep, that they have context as to why maybe that person didn't move forward with the deal. I don't know if you want to speak at all to that, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something, and I appreciate you mentioning that. We're seeing a lot of customers leverage, our AI to basically help ask some of these kind of more standardized qualifying questions, maybe higher up during the beginning of a customer relationship when maybe someone comes inbound. You don't know necessarily if they're a good fit. For example, they could live outside of your service area, or maybe they're not. Maybe it's commercial and you only do residential, for example. So our AI is able to answer a lot of these questions, or if they're further down, like, hey, how did the technician explain everything correctly? It saves the CSR team a ton of time, right? So instead of having to have a person staff to be kind of answering these questions kind of over and over again, the AI can do it automatically. And then we're able to send those notes and all that information into Service Titan. So when you do have someone on the sales side review that, or the technician, for example, they're able to see the answers to the questions that the homeowner was responding to. So definitely speeds up a lot of kind of those customer conversations. It's a lot more efficient, and you can take the folks who are previously maybe picking up the phones and just doing those kind of repetitive qualification questions over and over again, and have them go into outbounding or work with kind of more strategic opportunities in your customer base. So it's a little bit of an overview of how we're seeing the AI get adopted.
It's kind of funny you say about the notes being over there. Like, some people will say, hey, it just isn't our budget right now. It's a repair, like a upgrade, system enhancement, whatever, like a air purifier or something like that. Well, the next technician, they'll say, hey, we're going to do that the next time. We're going to plan on, we don't want to use financing, whatever they may say. So it's good information. The technician the next time sees in the notes, and he knows, Tim's interested in the indoor air quality. He didn't do it last time. He said he's going to do it this next time. So, hey, Tim, you remember that air purifier? I know you didn't do it last time. You'd made mention that you wanted to do it on this visit. I have one with me, so.
That's great. And one other thing, Michael, you mentioned to me, there's like a phrase you use when you're following up, and this might be for like longer term estimates. This is a little bit less on the objection side, a little bit more on the persuasion side, but I think it was something like, have you given up on this project, or what is that message that you guys use?
It's, have you given up on this project, and just keep it at that. Just like, boom, that's it. That you're going to, one of two things happens. 90% of them will respond, oh no, we haven't given up on it. And the 10 that didn't, or the 20 that don't respond, they went with somebody else, because they're always going to respond. You can try it with anything in your personal life or whatever. If you send that text or that email, people are going to respond.
Yeah.
Because oh no, I haven't given up on that. But it's almost like a reset, because if they were communicating with you and then they ghost you like that, something about the way you communicated with them or what you did pushed them away, and so it's kind of like a second chance, a free second chance. But don't get back into the same thing you were doing, because they're just going to ghost you and they won't respond to you for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people in the chat use that one, or they use something similar. If any of you guys have particular wording or phrasing that works for you, I'd love to see it in the chat. So feel free to put that in as well. All right, I think let's move on a little bit. We covered some objection handling. I learned a lot when I was researching this book, and I put together kind of like a little cheat sheet. So we'll be sending that out after this webinar too. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. I want to transition a little bit over to Rescue Air. I want to learn a little bit more about your story, Michael, with Rescue Air, and how you're using Hatch. And I know that you are a Service Titan user, and this is really popular among our audience. So if you don't mind, can you just share like a brief history of how you came to be Rescue Air?
How we became to be Rescue Air, kind of our story.
Just a little story. Yeah.
So my nephew and I, Josh, he moved down here from Virginia. I'd been here 5 or 6 years, and I worked for a larger company as a selling tech. And so he moved down and he went to work with us too. And then after 3 years he was here, he thought it'd be a good idea for us to start our own company. So that's how we kind of got into it. We've always been in the trades, him and I both. So it's not like we haven't ever done anything like that. And he had a company before in Virginia, but didn't really. We became a lot more process oriented from his blunders from before. So from where we worked before, we saw these processes. And if you have processes that Hatch process, if you have processes in place and you use them, you're going to be much more successful. It's consistency.
Yep.
What I tell service technicians, just be consistent on every call.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we got to where we are.
Yeah. And at what point did you guys decide to start using Hatch? Did you know that you wanted something to help standardize your process, or were you looking for a communication solution?
Well, it was more, we had tried having an ISR in the past, inside sales rep, and it just always never got any traction. It seemed like it always failed. We were trying to communicate with them through chat. They don't have any idea. They're getting a text and the guy was there last week, because that's just when we got the Senate, and they're like, what am I getting this for? So it was confusing. So a friend of mine had started using Hatch, and so he told me about it, because I said, man, I'm not getting traction on it. So I think we onboarded this a little over a year ago. So we've seen great results and we use it just mostly for rehash type of thing, inside sales. So we've seen, great success with it. No matter who we put in there, in that position, I've taken people that were CSRs that knew nothing about air conditioning or plumbing, and they're able to at least communicate and get jobs sold. They may not know what they sold, but they got the job sold. And it's really easy to train people to use. And, if they have a question, if somebody has a question, you text in, what is XYZ? There are people here that can help them and answer the question, So it's not like it's got to be somebody that was worked in the field or has a vast knowledge of air conditioning or plumbing or anything like that. It's just basically they're communicating with people. But It's a platform, and it's a process. All they have to do is manage the process.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like you're kind of using Hatch as that like layer, you have somebody in charge of Hatch. They, like you said, they don't have to be an expert in HVAC or plumbing sales, but they can get those conversations started. They can manage them, keep them organized in Hatch, and then triage and kind of divvy them out to the proper rep. Is that kind of how you guys do it, or the tech? Or
realistically, the girl that's running our Hatch right now, she used to be she's been a dispatcher before and like a sales lead coordinator before, and she'll close jobs just over Hatch. She'll email back over estimates and have
Yeah.
them sign them, and then she'll schedule them. Some of the bigger jobs, like if it was a sewer job or they're doing tunneling and things like that, she'll get a hold of the plumber. And plumbers don't like to talk to people, customers anyway. So they'll just say, hey, here's the best you could do if it's a pricing issue in their budget and they whatever. So they'll help her maybe price a discount of some sort if we have to go that route.
Yep.
But, for the most part, she closes everything, creates the job, gets it scheduled, all that stuff. So
That's great. That's awesome. Tim, you work with a lot of customers. Do you see a similar setup with people using Hatch? They have like that one person dedicated?
Yeah, often at least one person that's kind of living in Hatch, right? And so, I would say oftentimes we'll see for some of our larger customers, 5 or 10 or even more that are dedicated to Hatch and really not doing much outside of it. And it's a recommendation because I think, as you can probably attest to, Michael, you're getting messages all the time, right? And so you want to respond as quickly as you can. Obviously, with our AI, the AI can have some of those conversations back and forth, but you still want to be able to take over a conversation, especially if it's getting close to maybe closing. You're going to have better results if someone who knows the business and can take it over is in there getting that closed up. So definitely would recommend at least one person kind of live in Hatch, keeping it open in their browser and responding as conversations happen.
Yep, for sure.
kind of funny you say that about having one person. My ops manager here, the guy that was doing Hatch, was going on vacation. And I said, well, we need to get somebody probably taking care of that. He's like, no, man, I can handle it. It can't be that hard. And he basically couldn't do his ops side of his job, but about halfway. And he goes, dude, there's a lot. He goes, I didn't realize so many people message back in. And then, you have to go look and see, you want to see what they're talking about and all that. It's not a part-time job if you have a company that runs a lot of calls. It's just not a part-time job. And I think some people think that, like, hey, this is all going to be automated. One person can take care of, 50 technicians. I don't think that's the case if they're doing it properly.
Yeah. So I know, were you guys using Service Titan before Hatch?
Yeah, we've been on Service Titan since 2016, so we've been on it a while.
Yep. And how are you using the two together?
Well, being able to get to know when Hatch has communicated with Service Titan and things like that works really well for people if it didn't close the last time. So they go back and forth and they flow together. So it works out really well for us. And the ability to, if Natalie has somebody that says, hey, I want to move it, I want to go ahead and do that, you can sell the estimate and boom, boom, boom. It's sold. They can sign off on it. You can book it. It just makes it so easy.
Yeah, that's great. Any I don't know. I mean, I know we do have a lot of Service Titan users. Do you have any pro tips on using Hatch and Service Titan together? Is there anything have you made any mistakes along the way that you would tell your former self? How does it go? I'm not using my words here, guys. Help me out.
Yeah,
what would you tell yourself in 5 years or something?
Yeah, I went back a year when we first started. Man, I don't think we really have, because we've had really good support from the Hatch side, and they kind of set us up for success. I think they probably told us it's been a year. I don't remember exactly, over a year. They gave us a lot of pointers of like, don't do this, don't do that. They told her, teach how to dismiss estimates. And so if you sold something, that it doesn't keep sending out things. And, one of the, it's wild, like Tim was saying about like the happy check and stuff. Our guys know that we use it. So it's almost like it's an accountability tool to a degree too. They know, like, don't just, we had a epidemic, I guess you would call it. We're telling guys, hey, we want you to leave 3 estimates, leave this. And it was just so cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter. And once we started using this, we saw a drastic change in the way people talk about the estimates and the estimates they created for the homeowners. They were actually, they put some thought into them, and they were more individualized. It wasn't just like, you need X, you need Y, you need Z. Next house, you need X, you need Y, you need Z. So it's a little bit of an accountability tool for the field people too.
Yeah,
They know you're looking.
right. And they know that every estimate now is going to get followed up on, whereas it sounds like in the past, not every estimate. So they could just kind of cookie cutter it.
Yeah, we didn't follow up on every estimate by any stretch of the imagination. So now they know that they're being followed up on as far as the estimates. So they leave things that make sense, and they leave good estimates. They have good conversations with people. Their closing percentages actually have gone up since we've used Hatch.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So when they're actually in the home, they close more work than they did before we used Hatch.
Yeah. Do you know, like off the top of your head, do you have like a percentage? Much?
I know it's over 5%. I know it was probably pushing around 10% when we first started kind of tracking it. We don't really track it anymore, but we just saw that it was being more work was being closed.
Yeah. I know a lot of our customers will kind of say, like, at first they feel a little hesitant to like reach out so many times after an estimate. They'll see that the campaign goes for, a week, maybe a text and an email a day. But then a lot of them say that that's what works. It might take 5 or so attempts to get a response, and then it ends up closing the deal. Did you have a similar thought process, or did you know, like off the bat, that you wanted to reach out several times?
Well, at first I thought, oh, well, we're probably going to reach out too much. And then I thought of my own self, how many times, like, I'll get a text message from somebody and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And then life gets busy, and it isn't anything of, it isn't, you need a new engine in your car or something, some, enhancement of some sort, and you forget about it, and you never do it. And, like 6 months from now, you're like, oh, man, I wanted to get that. You saw it at a buddy's house or something. And I'm like, damn, I wish they would have followed up with me, more than that one time. And now I'm going back through text messages trying to find it. So I think in today's world, it's almost necessary, to kind of hit them a few times here and there, because they may be busy when they see that and they go, oh yeah, I want to talk to them about that. And then, they get into something at work, and they pick up their kids after school and do whatever. And the next day's the next day. And it's a week, and then it's 6 months, and, just never happens.
I've got a quick anecdote about that. I completely agree. And it was very funny this week. A friend of mine on a group chat sent a screenshot of a message he sent. And in the left corner, he has an iPhone, it had all the unread messages he had. He had 1,770 unread messages. And first of all, I think that's a little crazy, right? Most people don't have that. But it also, I think, is kind of indicative of how a lot of people, they're just people getting text messages all the time from their friends or family, whatever. You're going to miss one, and then you're not necessarily going to get back to it. So following up, I mean, I've got to follow up with this friend a fair amount if I want to get a response from him sometime. So that starts to make a little bit more sense. But I think a lot of people, while not that, to that extreme, it still happens where life gets in the way. They pick up the kids from school, like you said, and they missed that text.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, like, their inbox, whether their email or text inbox, is kind of like their to-do list. And so I do it. I pin things to the top because I'm like, I know I'll check my text, so I'll remember there. I mean, if you have 1,000 missed text messages, maybe that's not your to-do list of choice, but yeah, absolutely. People need that follow-up, and sometimes they actually appreciate it because they're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. I needed somebody to check in on that for me.
Well, and this they can always opt out. They bother.
Say that again, Michael. I think
They
your
can
voice.
always opt out, right? You know, if they and I don't know what our percentage is of the opt out, but if they feel like you're bothering them too much, they can always opt out.
Yep.
Or the best thing about it too is one of the really good things is if there's so much more they're more transparent with you through the text. I think it's the nature of people in the world today. The confrontation, they don't want to tell you that Tim did a bad job over here on the phone, but
Right.
they don't mind keyboard warrior and Tim was terrible compared to Andrew was great. My last technician, Tim, I don't know what's going on with that guy. So I think you get a lot more transparency from homeowners.
Yep, for sure. And actually, a funny story. Uh, my aunt sends me like fun facts every day over text, and today's fun fact was that there was a guy in Colorado who was lost for like 36 hours in the woods, and he didn't respond to phone rescue like the Coast Guard or whatever. Not Coast Guard because that's Colorado. Whoever it was, they were trying to rescue him and they were calling his phone and he was not picking up the phone because it was an unknown number. And I just think that also goes to, people don't pick up the phone today. But if they get a text, like maybe if the rescue squad texted this guy, he might have looked at it and responded, but people just don't pick up the phone, especially if the number is unknown. So I don't know. I'm sure, I know a lot of our customers, they kind of use text as a vehicle to get that, eventually they do end up on the phone, but do you find, Michael, that texting gets people to respond over a phone call?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's so much faster. A phone call. If I see a phone call coming from somebody like in my personal life that is a service provider for me, I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a 20-minute conversation. I don't have time to talk to him right now.
Yep.
So I just don't answer them. I'm like that guy lost in the mountains. I just don't answer the phone call.
Right.
But if somebody sent me a text and said, "Hey, you have this going on at your house. We were looking at your pool or whatever, and this is going on. What do you want to do?" I'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead and fix that or whatever." But I don't
Yep.
want to get on the phone for 20 minutes. And I'm more of a D on a disc analysis, red on color code. I like direct. Like I don't want to hear all his whole backstory of why I need that. I
Yep.
just do I need it or I don't need it. And I think a lot of customers are that way and they handle the text a lot better.
Yep, for sure. All right. So I've got a third section here to talk a little bit about AI. We'll spend just a few minutes on that and then we can get more into the Q&A. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. I mean, obviously this is a hot topic for everybody using AI. It's a hot topic for Hatch because we are AI. So, Michael and Tim, I just wanted to get both of your thoughts. Michael, where do you guys stand at Rescue Air? Where do you stand with AI? How do you feel about it in general?
We embraced it. I mean, we jumped on it right away. We use a lot of AI products here.
Yeah.
There's a book, Co-Intelligence. Have you ever heard of that book?
I haven't.
Malik, a professor at University of Penn. It's a great book about AI and using it responsibly and, a lot of the fear behind it and using it really, use AI to collaborate with basically and use it for mundane tasks. And, I don't think I've really written a thought out email in a long time. I just basically use ChatGPT and I go, I want to write an email about such and such. Hey, make it more professional. Hey, whatever it might be. So we've kind of embraced it since it started rolling into our industry.
So it sounds like from the start, you weren't really hesitant. You kind of wanted to get started with it right away.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's happening. Either you're on the front end of it or you're trying to play catch up all the time.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
mean, it's in every industry. I mean,
Yep.
it probably got to us a little slower maybe than some other industries, but that's okay.
Yeah. Kind of coming full circle, do when some of the AI platforms that you're using or considering, do you, from a home services perspective, have you had objections that were addressed by those AI products, or did you have any we don't need this, and then you realize later that it's been like more beneficial? Or
I would say we've kind of been open-minded to it. There's some that we haven't used, but we just didn't feel like it made sense for
Yeah.
us right now. But there's probably four that we use all the time.
Yeah.
And we use them on a daily basis, and they work really well, and they give a lot of really good feedback, and it just makes everybody on our team better.
Yeah.
And our teams, I think you find like younger guys and gals, they're more open to embrace it. It's funny, like one of the guys, he was like, you'd be really naive to think, you carry this phone around. Anybody wants to know anything about you, he goes, it listens, it knows where you are. He goes, so if it's going to help us in other aspects, it's really, they're all aboard for it. So we don't have much pushback.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Tim, I want to give you a little bit of a chance to talk about RAI, especially for people on the call who may not be aware of it, about Hatch AI. So I think in the spirit of this webinar, what are some of the objections that you get from people that are considering AI or something like Hatch AI? Like, can you tell the audience a little bit about how Hatch AI works, and then what kinds of objections you get and how you address them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way we describe Hatch AI is it's an AI CSR. So think of it as, you could also think of it as an AI ISR if you have that kind of team structure. So one or the both. So basically, what it does is it's designed to be catered to the sort of type of what we call campaign that you're trying to do. So if it's someone just coming into your website, or maybe you're buying leads on Angie or Google local service ads for the first, they're coming in for the first time, it can start to ask questions and qualify and say, oh, well, are you the homeowner? Like, what kind of service do you need? What's going on? So you can basically design it to do some of the things that you'd have a CSR do at that sort of initial customer touch point coming into your business for the first time. Same with estimate follow-up. You could have it attached to a campaign saying, how did it go with the technician? If someone replies, like, oh, great, it sounds like it went well. Are you ready to proceed? And then it could basically help move things along automatically without needing sort of a CSR that's a human to be constantly typing back and forth. In Hatch, it's doing all of that for them. And then it's tied to what we call a success action. So basically, those success actions can be something like a meeting in ServiceTitan calendar for a technician to go out to someone's home. So we can automatically do that. Or it could just be as simple as moving from one, if you're familiar with Hatch, from one column in Hatch to another. So saying, okay, someone came inbound, now I'm going to move them into, ready to have an appointment set where someone's going to give them a call and finalize the details there. Lots of customizability there in terms of what you can do with Hatch AI, and obviously happy to go into more detail, but that's kind of at a high level how people use it.
And what would you, I know some people are hesitant about using AI, like not in a salesy way, but like what is some advice you would give to somebody considering AI? Like, what's the risk reward kind of story there?
Yeah, I would say the potential risks, or I would say objections that we get sometimes are we have people who are staffed to do this. I worry a little bit about whether or not are their jobs on the line here. So that's scary, right? It's change in an organization, and we never advocate to, replace jobs. I think what we often see is that it basically frees up folks who are on that CSR front line to, instead of doing what you might call the tier one work of the qualification, kind of answering the same questions over and over again, they can handle kind of more difficult customer conversations, or they can go and start to do more outbounding. Maybe they don't have time to do outbounding today. There's probably a long list, and I'm sure, Michael, you have ideas of things people could do, right, if they had more time back. Always a lot of lists as a business owner of like, I wish I could get to this or that, and I just don't have the resources to do it. With Hatch AI now, all of a sudden you have more resources to do it. But those are the common objections. Hey, is this going to mean, what's this going to mean for my team? What's it going to mean for the people that are in the company? And that's something we're sensitive to for sure.
I think that goes back to you use AI to collaborate.
Totally.
And make things better. One thing you didn't touch on, I think I might have told you the last time, we've actually used it for marketing, off the tags, push campaigns out through that. And it's worked really well.
Yeah. Hatch campaigns for like those marketing blasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's, I'm sure you can speak to this, Michael, that it's important, once you get a lead, it's good. You've got to reach the lead immediately. You've got to follow up on the estimate. And then once you have them as a customer, it doesn't mean it's just a one-time thing. So being able to re-engage them, it sounds like it's giving you guys some more longevity with both Hatch and the lead that you essentially purchased.
Yeah, I think if you have more than one service line, like we don't have electrical right now, but out here, when we start electrical, I'm going to go in and people that buy from me, I want to embark it to them. They like our company, so why wouldn't they like us if we're doing electrical too? So
yeah,
push your offers or just certain things out to them through that.
Yep. And I think that's also a great use case for the AI, because if you want to do a mass blast to your whole database, that's great. But what are you going to do when they all start responding? And when you have an AI that can kind of do those rinse and repeat conversations, and then they're only just passing off the qualified leads, the people, to the reps that can then do the scheduling.
Exactly.
That's great. All right. Well, we are coming up on time, so I'm going to give us some time to do a Q&A here. Before or while we do this, I am going to launch a poll. This just has 2 questions. You'll see it on your screen. It's just, if you are a Hatch customer and you want to learn more about what we're talking about, or maybe you have an issue with your account that you've been trying to figure out, or maybe you just want to learn more. I've got sunlight coming in here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's distracting me. That's one option if you're a Hatch customer. If you're not a Hatch customer and you want to learn more about Hatch, there's an option for you to choose that as well. So we'll leave that up. And now I'm going to jump over and just look at some of the questions and comments here. Let's see here. There's one person that asked, you encounter an issue with appointment quality when trying to set an appointment via text. I don't know who this is. I mean, I could answer it. I'm sure Tim could answer it. Michael, do you want to take a stab at this one?
I don't ever have any problems with it. Is he saying qualify? Do you encounter an issue with appointment quality when trying to set an appointment via text? I haven't heard anybody on our teams anywhere say that we've had any problems with it. I mean, we use AI on a lot of other stuff, and we just don't ever have any problems with that. I think a lot of people, they know it's probably like an AI bot or an AI product to some degree, talking to them or communicating with them. So we haven't really ever had any problems with it, no issues.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I'm thinking that maybe Drew was talking about people not showing up because it's so easy to just commit to an appointment over text. And I'll jump in really quickly.
Because the service, we'll book the appointment, and then they get a text. on our dispatch. So
Yep.
they, if there was an issue, it would be like, whoa, 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 what are y'all talking about?
Yep.
But so no, we don't really have any issues with that because we do notifications through service type.
Exactly. And then you have appointment reminders. And I
Of
know
course.
for some of our other clients that have like I know solar, it's more of a want and not a need. So in many cases, they have trouble with no shows because it's not like the highest priority. So those appointment reminders are really important in increasing or decreasing no shows. So hopefully that answers your question, Drew. What other questions do we have here? If you are going to use Hatch as a follow-up contact, then the person on the initial estimate should set it up. Is that ever done? Not quite sure what that question is referring to. Tim, do you have an idea on this one?
Sorry, are you referring to? I don't see the question.
Yeah, I'll transfer it into Q&A. I think they're just asking if maybe the person who did the estimate should do the follow-up. But I think it kind of just goes back to it not having to be in depth. It's more just like getting them to comment on the appointment.
That's right. That's the best practice that we see a lot of folks do, and it sounds like you're doing that, Michael. But basically, it's kind of saying, hey, how did it go? In the home, how did it go with your technician? Just trying to get a conversation started to then basically have the homeowner say, oh yeah, went great. Like, we're gonna do it. Or obviously many times is the case of this discussion. Hey, I have some, this issue or that issue or whatever it is. And then, you can't do anything about an objection if you don't know the objection's there, right? If people are just ghosting you. So it's trying to get that conversation going.
I think what he was asking there is, this is just me thinking back through how we had set up Hatch inside sales and stuff like that. When Hatch reaches back out, our company personally, our inside salesperson, we just want him to close the work. And he was wondering if I had a conversation going with Hatch and Tim was the initial person out there on the estimate, do they push it back to Tim? I think is what he was asking. We don't, and I'll tell you why. We built our pricing totally different than a lot of companies have, and I've talked to people about it. My ISR person is a salary person with a bonus structure on revenue, and it's a sliding scale, and it changes. We're heavy HVAC, so I expect a lot more out of the summer, and they hit those bonuses. And I think I know where he's going with this. Some companies will, if say you were getting 10% commission, if Tim was the ISR and he got the sale, he's going to get 3 of the 10. I took that out. I used to do it that way. It was a lot of pushback and there was a lot of non-transparency from my technicians and my salespeople because they didn't want Tim to sell the job. They thought it was their job. It's people. It's about me. So we built our pricing totally different to accommodate having that inside salesperson. And now they all feel like they're one team. It isn't the inside salesperson stealing they stole my sale. I had that guy. Yeah, he was going to call me back, and greedy Tim snuck in there and snatched it away from me.
Greedy Tim.
So we rebuilt the model that we used because it was just they hated my ISR person. I felt so bad for her. They thought she was, she's stealing all my jobs. That guy, I talked to him 2 days ago. He told me he was, sales guys. But so we just we rebuilt the model that we use.
Got it. I welcome a few more questions if there are any. And while we wait, if there are any, there were just a few comments in here where people shared some of the stuff that they've written that gets a response. So I just want to read those out. Somebody said, let's see. They say when they're following up to get a response, they say, I left a couple of texts and emails to discuss your project. Haven't heard back from you. Where should we go from here? So thank you, James, for sharing that one. That's a great message. Julie says she's gotten a lot of responses from our new estimate template verbiage. We did just kind of revamp some of our campaign templates. And this one says, hey, first name, it's user first name again, checking in on your estimate. I'm happy to talk through any questions or concerns you have. Let me know how I can help. Thank you, Julie. Jason says that when somebody stops responding to the text conversation, I will wait for about 10 minutes and ask the question, hey, customer's name, obviously, not just, hey, customer, are you still there? They will usually respond back and apologize for being busy and keep the conversation going so we can finish things up. I will say that Hatch AI, those CSR, the AI CSRs, you can put a setting in there that does ping them, or if you're still there. And then Danielle says, I usually say something like, are you still interested, or would you like me to dismiss those estimates? Which almost always prompts a response, especially when they are still interested. So great. Let's see. I know we're at time here.
Michael, I'm sorry to do this. I need to go.
That's fine.
I got a call.
No problem, Tim.
That's fine,
really,
Tim.
really nice to meet you,
Thank you so much.
Michael. Thanks for doing this. And thanks everybody for coming on as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Let's see. It looks like we got a few more questions here while I was reading this out. I'm happy to stay and answer some of these questions. I just need to know, Michael, are you free to stay for a few minutes? If you have to leave, you can.
Fine.
You're fine. Okay, cool. I'm just going to check in here. The AI chatbot that you're referring to does not come with the Hatch messaging system, correct? I currently use Hatch AI, but was not aware of an AI bot. Joshua, we will reach out to you. If you were using Hatch before AI, it's not a part of the system. So we're happy to reach out to you. Tim answered that and said it's an add-on. So we're happy to talk to you about that. Austin says, sometimes it feels a little more tedious to ask all the questions that would qualify your lead over text message when handled by a live CSR. This could mean a dozen more text over hours, depending on the response time of both CSR and lead.
I know for us, we actually asked, would you prefer a phone call or is text your preferred way of communicating?
Yeah.
And pick.
Yep, that makes sense. And Austin, also to Tim's point here, that's why we built Hatch AI. So it's easier for the customer to do it over text, but it may not be easier for a CSR to sit there and ask those questions. So that is, like Tim said, what Hatch used to be was the campaign message would go out. You'd have your cadence or your sequence. So a text would go out, an email would go out, next day, another email or text. And eventually you'd get the response. And once you get the response, then a rep can jump in and ask those questions. Now we have your AI, which can do all those rinse and repeat questions. And then by the time they pass it off to the human, they don't have to do any of those. So hopefully that kind of answers that issue. I often use AI like Copilot to revise and change up my text campaigns. Would Hatch implement AI in a way to make suggestions for verbiage in the campaign builder? Austin, this is a great question. I know that a lot of AI is in the form of a Copilot that makes suggestions. Our AI is actually just interfacing with the customer for you. So in a way, it's actually better because it's not telling you what to say and then having to have you go and say it. It's just going and doing it. But we do have some tools in the platform that kind of give suggestions on like how to prompt your bot. But for the most part, our customers say that the bot like kind of nails it the way that they talk. And then again, like we're saying, you don't necessarily want an AI bot handling a $30,000 quote estimate follow-up conversation, right? You just want them to get it started, get a few details, and then pass it off to a human that can really take that conversation tactically using some of those tactics that we talked about in the beginning of the call. So great. Well, I think that kind of sums everything up. I really thank you so much for your time, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and for those of you on this webinar, we'll be sending out the recording. If you have any questions, you can respond to the email follow-up. We'll send out a recap tomorrow. So if you guys have any other questions, we will be happy to answer them. So thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.